Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another Mad Meta Magic, where we try to make the magic meta mad. Now, today, I have Enduring Ideal. This is a list that I kind of threw together based off of a couple of interactions I discovered, and hopefully it works. I did test it in a single two-man, and we beat Jund with it. I didn't record it, though, so we'll see what happens. For those of you who don't know what Enduring Ideal is basically you amass a pile of enchantments that make your opponent not able to play the game anymore, and then you win. It's simple as that. So, a little bit more detail, we have this card called Enduring Ideal, which is one of the only cards that is considered quote-unquote playable from Kamigawa that isn't too good to be banned. But it's a 7-mana white sorcery that says you can search your library for an enchantment and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. It has the keyword epic, so for the rest of the game, you cannot cast spells, and at the beginning of each of your upkeeps, you copy this spell, and then you get to resolve the copy. So every single turn after you cast Enduring Ideal, if it resolves, you get to tutor out another enchantment, put it on the battlefield for free. Basically, we no longer have to cast spells after that point, we just assemble the lock in a few turns, and we're good to go. So, as our removal spell, we have On Thin Ice, because we're playing basically only basic snow plains as our basic, because we're mono-white. We do have a couple of blue enchantments, but we're not playing any islands because they're not important. We have Greater Oromancy, which says all other enchantments you control have Shroud. So this can protect our other enchantments from single target enchantment destruction. We can use Copy Enchantment to copy it if we want to have Greater Oromancy be protected, or Copy Enchantment can just be a redundant copy of all of our other enchantments. We have Runed Halo, which can give us protection from a particular card name, so I could name as an example Thoughtseize, Lightning Bolt, Eidolon of the Great Revel. It's got a lot of good names in Modern, but Runed Halo can be easy to destroy. It still is powerful, though. We have Ghostly Prison, which creatures can't attack you unless they pay 2 mana for each creature that is attacking. This is a great way to kind of stave off aggressive decks. We have Phyrexian Unlife, which can gain us basically 10 life to begin with. We also have the Invincibility combo of Phyrexian Unlife plus Solemnity, so even if we're past 0 life, we can't take damage in the form of Infect, because we can't gain Infect counters as long as we have Phyrexian Unlife Solemnity. We also have Detention Sphere as a decent removal spell, just hits everything with the same name. We have Hollowed Fountain, Prairie Stream, Lotus Field, and Flooded Strands, as well as Arid Mesas to fetch up those cards to actually cast this if we need to. Otherwise, we can just tutor it out with Enduring Ideal in the event that we need to get through a problem permanent or two before we actually win the game. We have Leyline of Sanctity, which serves as free white devotion for Nykthos Shrine to the Nyx, and also protects us from direct burn, hand hate, that sort of a thing. We have Sphere of Safety, which is Ghostly Prison Senior, which creatures can't attack you unless they pay X, where X is the number of enchantments you control. So it's like Ghostly Prison, but if we have 3 or more enchantments, they have to pay 3. If we have 4, they have to pay 4, etc. Dovescape, which is one of the hard lock enchantments available in Modern. It says if a player would cast a non-creature spell, you counter that spell, they make X 1/1 birds, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. Dovescape does interact favorably with Enduring Ideal. After you cast Enduring Ideal, the copies aren't cast, you just get to resolve them after they're placed on the stack, so they don't trigger Dovescape. And finally, we have our actual win condition in the form of the Dragon. Form of the Dragon says at the beginning of your upkeep, it deals 5 damage to any target, and at the beginning of your end step, your life total becomes 5, and creatures without flying can't attack you. So basically, after assembling the hard lock of our opponents not able to resolve spells anymore through Dovescape, that sort of a thing, we can play Form of the Dragon, and as long as we have something like Phyrexian Unlife, even if they can somehow deal 5 damage through all of our Ghostly Prison and Leyline of Sanctity effects, we gain back up to 5 at the end of every turn, and then we just shoot our opponent in the face with Form of the Dragon repeatedly until they die. Now, there's a card that I skipped over, and this card is our primary ramp engine in this deck, and this card is Brought Back. So Brought Back is choose up to 2 target permanent cards in the graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn, return them to the battlefield tapped. This is our mono-white ramp engine. And the way that we use this as ramp is if we have 2 Arid Mesas or Flooded Strands, we can crack them both for 2 planes, then cast Brought Back and get back our 2 lands. We can do that on our opponent's turn, we can do that on our own turn. We also have Lotus Field, which we can use to sack things like Flagstones of Trocare or another land. after floating 2 white mana, and then we can get the mana back that way. I could Ghost Quarter my own Flagstones if I have to. And this actually works with multiple Nykthoses. So if I play a Nykthos and activate it, then or if I have a Nykthos on board and I activate it, then I play another Nykthos, legend ruling myself and keeping the new Nykthos, I can activate it, then cast Brought Back and bring back another Nykthos, and we can just generate an absurd amount of white mana. And our final win condition, I don't think I've mentioned up until this point, is Heliod, God of the Sun, which is a 4-mana 5/6 god that has Indestructible. He is an enchantment normally, and he makes a whole bunch of clerics. He's kind of our white mana sink, in addition to sometimes generic blocker, sometimes beat stick, but generally a good way to win the game. Now to the sideboard, we have the best white enchantments that we have in Modern. We have Authority of the Consuls, which is great versus aggressive decks. It's great versus Cat Combo, that sort of a thing. We can just gain a whole bunch of life and force our opponent's creatures to enter tapped if they have haste shenanigans. We have Deafening Silence versus Storm, which is a 1-mana rule of law that stops our opponent from casting a bunch of spells in one turn. It does kind of limit us, but if we're casting multiple enchantments a turn, something has gone probably wrong, because we don't draw multiple cards a turn. So if we're playing multiple enchantments, that means enchantments were bounced to our hand when we have a whole bunch of mana left. Another Greater Oromancy, just in case our opponent does have a lot of enchantment destruction. We want some extra enchantment protection. We have Peace of Mind. This card should probably be in the main deck, but just in case we do draw our combo pieces, you can Peace of Mind, discard them, put them in the grave for Mistveil Plains them back into the deck, and then Enduring Ideal to get whatever enchantment we need back out. But I have it in the sideboard here because I couldn't find room to actually put it in the main deck. We'll see if that bites us. We have 3 Rest in Pieces versus Dredge and other graveyard combo decks. Stony Silence in the event we come up against Lantern Control or something crazy. We have Nevermore, just kind of a catch-all answer for any big spells we want to prevent or absolutely must prevent. This could be a Gideon's Intervention. I'm not 100% sure on that one. Wheel of Sun and Moon is anti-Miltech. Emrakul as an additional way to win the game. And Besieju as a hedge versus control decks. And I think that's everything I need to explain. So with this long deck tech, I'll see you guys in round 1. Alright, round 1, and we will be on the play. I am going to keep this. This seems like a pretty decent hand. We have On Thin Ice as an early removal spell if we need it. We also have the Flagstones Lotus Field combo, which I'm pretty excited about. So we'll lead on Flagstones, pass the turn. Could have led on Plains, but I don't think Flagstones lets our opponent know we're Enduring Ideal or anything crazy like that. So the thing is, if I do have to On Thin Ice, I want to make sure I have 3 lands before I play Lotus Field, because I don't want to sack the basic that's got the On Thin Ice on it. Opponent takes Runed Halo. We untap and draw Flooded Strand. I'm going to play Hollowed Fountain tapped. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play a Bloodstained Mire. Crack Bloodstained Mire for a Watery Grave into a Delver of Secrets. So this is Grixis Delver with Lurrus. We untap. We draw Ghostly Prison. So float mana. Play Lotus Field. We'll go ahead and sack our 2 lands here. Tutor up our Snow-Covered Plains, then On Thin Ice to exile Delver. Alright, pass the turn. I mean, that worked out pretty well for us. Opponent bolts themselves for Agadeem the Undercrypt. That tells me that they're probably playing Death Shadow, yeah. And another Delver. We untap. We draw a Form of the Dragon, which us not having... what's it called? Us having this in our hand is very bad. So I'm going to play Snow-Covered Plains, and then I'm going to play Ghostly Prison, which should hopefully slow my opponent down. I don't want to lose any life from the fetch land just yet, because I want my opponent to have to attack us or bolt us before being able to play something like Scourge of the Skyclaves or anything like that. Opponent attacks us for 6, 7. They have to pay 4 mana to attack, so they're tapping out for this. Okay. Well, Ghostly Prison number 2 or Sphere of Safety would be great. Fetch land is not exactly what I want. So, play Flooded Strand. Pass the turn. Hopefully we're not dead to a Temur Battle Rage, though that could be possible. Opponent reveals a Lightning Bolt. Plays a Bloodstained Mire. Goes to combat. Attacks us for 9. This could mean that we're actually dead to casting a Lightning Bolt. Or we could be dead to our own fetch land, I mean. It's kind of looking like how it is. Oh, never mind, they can fetch and shock. What am I thinking? Alright. So we died a Lightning Bolt. Alright, so versus Death Shadow Delver. I do want Peace of Mind in the deck. Do I want Rest in Peace? I'm not 100% on that. I could bring in a couple of Authority of the Consuls, though they don't generally have haste or anything like that that I need to worry about. I think for Peace of Mind, I'm just going to drop maybe Copy Enchantment or Detention Sphere. I could cut a land. Yeah, I think I'm going to cut a land to bring in Peace of Mind. I could bring in Boseiju if I was worried about counter spells. I'm not particularly worried. I actually think I want to bring in the other Greater Oromancy as well, and I'm going to drop... I'll drop Detention Sphere for the other Greater Oromancy. Alright, I would like to play first. If we can get an opener with Leyline, that would be huge. Yeah. This seems good. Start with Leyline. Play Flagstones. Pass the turn. Opponent starts Bauble. Second Bauble. And Scalding Tarn. They crack Scalding Tarn, getting a Watery Grave tapped. Alright. We untap. They draw a card. We draw Plains. Play a Plains. Ruined Halo. We'll go ahead and name Death Shadow. Pass the turn. Opponent cracks Bauble. One thing you gotta know with Ruined Halo is you have to name a card name. And most tokens are not card names. So you can't name, like, Soldier Token or anything like that. Alright, opponent plays Bloodstained Mire. Passes. We untap. Draw Sphere of Safety. Play a Plains. Play Ghostly Prison. Okay, we get Force Spiked. I could have played around that by playing Nykthos and activating it, but I did not. Opponent shocks a Blood Crypt. Fetches with Bloodstained Mire. Shocks a Steam Vents. They put Lurrus into their hand. We untap. We draw a Ghostly Prison. So, play Nykthos. And let's resolve the more expensive enchantment. Play Sphere of Safety. Pass the turn. There's a reason this deck is called Pillow Fort. Opponent plays Lurrus. Plays Bauble. Cracks Bauble. We untap. They draw a card. We draw a Copy Enchantment, which we cannot cast. Add a bunch of white mana. Play Ghostly Prison. Pass the turn. Opponent can't attack us unless they pay 6 mana. That seems pretty good. Opponent plays a Bauble. Plays a Bauble. They try and attack, and can't. they apparently cannot beat the double Ghostly Prison effect. That's good to know. I could bring in Emrakul just to have a way to actually use all this mana. Like a backup plan. Alright, we'll run it back. I'm thinking 4 brought back is probably too much. I think the land ramp alone might actually be enough in the general case that we probably should have other enchantments. This hand is almost good. If this hand had a Leyline, it would actually be quite good. But with all the combo enchantment pieces in our hand, it's not that great. I can work with this. I'm going to put back Dovescape. Opponent plays Bloodstained Mire and Bauble. And second Bauble. Cracks Bauble. Cracks Bauble. Cracks Bloodstained Mire. Shocks a Watery Grave. Thoughtseize. Alright. Well, they can take Ruined Halo or Brought Back. Brought Back is a mana engine. Ruined Halo is a card they might have trouble dealing with. We untap. They draw 2 cards. We draw a Leyline of Sanctity. I want to lead on Flooded Strand and just wait to crack it. If I can draw another fetch land, I can Brought Back next turn. We're getting Thoughtseized. They take Ruined Halo. They crack Bloodstained Mire. They shock Watery Grave. This tells me they probably have Stubborn Denial. We untap and draw Form of the Dragon. Play Flagstones. Pass the turn. We can brought back for 1 fetch land. Opponent shocks a Steam Vents, plays a Delver, plays a Delver. Alright, I'm going to wait just in case they do have Stubborn Denial. I can play around it. We get Phyrexian Unlife, play Nykthos, crack Flooded Strand. We'll get a Snow-Covered Basic. Just bring back the 1. Not the greatest play, but that's what happens when you get double Thought Seized. I wasn't going to mulligan to Leyline, but maybe I could have mulliganed a little bit more. It's possible I should have mulliganed more aggressively, because, you know, what are we doing otherwise? This deck does not top deck very well because we have no top deck manipulation. Although, with Brought Back, perhaps we should be playing some of the Horizon lands, actually. That's not a bad idea now that I think about it. There is room for them in the mana base, I just have to switch some things around. Alright, we untap. Fetch on our upkeep, get a Plains, we draw, Enduring Ideal, play Unlife. This gets around 1 Stubborn Denial, but not a Mana Leak, Remand, or 2 Stubborn Denials. Okay, Phyrexian Unlife resolves, that's pretty big. If we can draw another land, we can play Leyline of Sanctity playing around Stubborn Denial, which is the card they've been acting like they have. So if they've got Spell Pierce or something like that, I probably could just end up walking into that. Hopefully they can't, like, Void Snare or Echoing Truth this Unlife. That would be bad. We draw Lotus Field. Alright, play Leyline of Sanctity. They do have Stubborn Denial. Okay. So, play Lotus Field. Sack a Plains, sack Flagstones. Go and get Mistveil Plains, I think? Yeah. So we have 6 mana. If we can untap and draw Enduring Ideal and our opponent doesn't have an answer for Unlife, we win the game. We get Inquisitioned. Opponent whiffs. They hit us for 6, down to 0. We untap. Untap land, please. Leyline of Sanctity technically works a little bit, because that helps us get to Nykthos mana. Play Leyline. They bolt our face. Okay. Pass the turn. I need to draw a basic Plains. They're going to attack us up to 9 Infect, and I need to be able to get Solemnity by resolving Enduring Ideal. I guess I could draw Solemnity, but that's what I need at this point. So we untap, we draw second Leyline, which does not do it. That adds 3 mana, so it's mana neutral, and we are 1 mana off of Enduring Ideal. So, unfortunately, we lose. That was really close, though. We were just a mana off of winning the game. So, I'll see you guys in round 2. Okay, we get to be on the play for round 2, and I'm going to keep this hand. So this is probably a turn 2 Runed Halo, maybe a turn 3 Brought Back, depending on if we draw a fetch land or not. We're leading on Flagstones, pass the turn. Opponent plays a Flooded Strand. We untap, we draw Snow-Covered Plains. Runed Halo gets better as we learn what our opponent is doing. A blind name is in general not very good, but I think that's our option here. So we're going to Runed Halo, and I'm going to name Snapcaster Mage. I think that's slightly more likely than Celestial Colonnade. Pass the turn. Opponent gets a Watery Grave. Alright, so unless they're Esper, that's not a very good name. Opponent plays a Snow-Covered Island. We untap. We draw a Detention Sphere. Play Flagstones. Sack Flagstones. And we'll go get a Hollowed Fountain tapped. Then I will bring back the Flagstones. Alright, we'll keep the untapped one. Sack this Flagstones for our Mistveil Plains, I think. Then pass the turn. So opponent opts on our end step. They could be fairies. Actually might just be Esper Control. We untap. Draw Plains. Play a Plains. Cast Sphere of Safety. If they're Esper Control, their Esper Charm's erase mode might actually be relevant. Well, Sphere of Safety resolves. The Archmage's Charm to draw cards. They untap, play a land, then discard to hand size, Fatal Push. We draw Plains, play a Plains, pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play a land, and Big Teferi. Okay. They draw a card and go to untap some lands. So I guess we will try and Detention Sphere Teferi. Draw Ghostly Prison. Play Nykthos. Play Detention Sphere. Playing around Logic Knot, as well as Mana Leak, but not Force. They pitch Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. We play Ghostly Prison. Pass the turn. The problem is, Teferi can just tuck all of our stuff, so we're probably not winning this. And with our only Oblivion Ring effect exiled, there's no way for us to get it back. There's actually nothing we can do about this onboard Teferi. And I mean, if he ults, it's game over, because we... I mean, I guess technically we could get, like, Greater Auramancy and then clone it, but we would have to somehow resolve an Enduring Ideal versus an Esper Control opponent who countered nothing. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and concede. So we're going to bring in Boseiju, our other Greater Auramancy, Emrakul, and I think Wheel of Sun and Moon. We can kind of cut down on the Ghostly Prison effects, and probably an On Thin Ice, and try it like this. Rest in Peace is a little bit risky, because if we, well, I guess, could bring in Peace of Mind, probably over a Brought Back, and we'll try it like this. I mean, we do get to the point we can generate enough mana to just hard cast Emrakul, so it's not impossible, especially if we have a good opener with good Devotion and multiple Nykthoses. Alright, so we'd like to play first. This is not necessarily a good hand for Brought Back. We're going to mulligan this. We can put Ruined Halo back in the deck, and we have Heliod. I think we mulligan again. This works a little bit better. So I'm going to put back Detention Sphere and a Plains. Play Flagstones, pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They shock Watery Grave, so they either have Spell Pierce, Opt, or Spell Snare. We draw a Flooded Strand. Play out Arid Mesa, we'll just pass. Okay, they opt. We untap. Draw Greater Auramancy. Well, that will be important to resolve if we can. So we're going to lead on Ruined Halo. And I'm going to name... What do they have that targets us? I think Jace the Mind Sculptor, so they don't get any ideas about ulting him. So yeah, if you weren't going to play a version with Brought Back, which feels almost a little bit superfluous, or not perfectly executed at least, you could play Suppression Field in the main deck with no fetch lands. And that would be something, I suppose. Play Flooded Strand. And then I'm going to cast another Ruined Halo and name Esper Charm, so I can't get Mind Rotted. Alright, pass the turn. Opponent cracks Flooded Strand. It's a Watery Grave tapped. They untap. Play a Glacial Fortress. They play Jace the Mind Sculptor. Then they Brainstorm. Alright, so I think it's time to resolve Heliod. Although they could just downtick and unsummon him, I suppose. This is going to be the only time my opponent ever taps out for anything. So let's go get Hallowed Fountain tapped. And we'll fetch up Arid Mesa. And we kind of need to draw, I think, Nykthos here. We'll get Mistvale Plains, because it's our other tap land. We untap. Draw Ruined Halo. Not really what I wanted to draw. But I guess we'll go Greater Auramancy. If I play Heliod, they literally just unsummon him, so it's not like it does anything. Okay. They force pitching Logic Knot. Then we'll Ruined Halo and I guess name Snapcaster. Yeah. I really dislike that Force of Negation is legal in Modern now. It made way, way more sense to me when people had like Simian Spirit Guide and were powering out Blood Moon on turn 1 and things like that. You know, if you have fast mana, then having 0 mana counterspells is fine in a format. If you don't have fast mana, 0 mana counterspells do not belong in a format. Unless they're, like, borderline unplayable. Like, Commandeer has some jank potential, but it requires, like, a particular method of deck building, and you have to pitch a lot of resources to quote-unquote counter a spell, which I'm fine with. But, like, Force of Negation is not that big of a cost for a pretty powerful effect. And I'm not saying, like, I know blue-white control historically has not been that great in Modern. There's been long stretches of time where basically any form of control is not playable. And it has nothing to do with how playable control is, in my opinion. There are way more than enough answers and other things that are playable for any form of blue-white. We draw Enduring Ideal, but we're not going to be able to cast it. Not without a Nykthos, anyway. So we're going to on Thin Ice to get rid of Mentor. Alright. Opponent's drawing 4 cards a turn and has a fast clock, so we're going to call it here. I'll see you guys in round 3. Alright, we're on the draw for round 3. If this is a deck that Leyline hoses, this will be kind of funny. I mean, I guess we have double Leyline Nykthos, so this is a lot of mana. If we're against Tron, we have Ghost Quarter, which might trip them up a little bit. So, let's try it. Begin with double Leyline. Put a mulligan to 6. And they scoop. So, they're probably Burn or Jund. Which means I think I want Peace of Mind, maybe a couple Authority of the Consuls. I'll drop a Brought Back, and I'm going to drop a land. I'll try it like this. I'll just go bring in 1 Authority of the Consuls. This hand is almost good, but we've got too much of the heavy enchantment stuff in our hand. This is fine if slow, so at least this time around we'll get to see what we're up against. Opponent starts Polluted Delta. Okay, so it's probably fairies. It's Mill. Mill can't beat the... They're not going to expect Emrakul game 3, that's for sure. We need to actually fetch out Mistveil Plains as soon as possible. There it is, never mind. We're toast. We untap. We draw a Ruined Halo. Play a Plains. So we'll play Ruined Halo. It gets drowned. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps. They play Prismatic Vista and Millis. They crack Prismatic Vista and Millis again. Protection from Ruined Crab doesn't matter because Ruined Crab doesn't target. We draw a Leyline. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and concede. And now that we know what we're up against, we can intelligently sideboard, he says, putting Emrakul in the deck. We don't need Authority of the Consuls. We will bring in Brought Back. We will bring in Wheel of Sun and Moon. I'm going to bring in Boseiju. Bring Arid Mesa back into the deck. We'll cut some Ghostly Prisons. I'm going to bring in another Greater Auramancy over another Ghostly Prison, because the odds that we get attacked by anything are very low. And I think finally I'm going to bring in a Deafening Silence, and we'll just cut the last Ghostly Prison effects. Because other than, like, if they're playing Rogues, the Rogue Mill version of the deck, we're not going to need the anti-attack stuff. Too slow, we're going to mulligan. This should work. The double fetch land Brought Back is actually quite nice. And we can play Greater Auramancy shortly after. I'm going to put Phyrexian Unlife back in the deck, though. The opponent is mulligan to 5. Okay. Put Leyline onto the battlefield. Lead on Arid Mesa, pass the turn. Opponent plays Watery Grave tapped. We untap and draw Ruined Halo. So fetch, get a Hallowed Fountain. Fetch, get a Snow-Covered Plains. Brought Back, pass the turn. The old 5 mana on turn 3. What are we playing, Tron? Opponent plays Polluted Delta. Cracks Polluted Delta for an island. If they have... Okay. I don't think I can give myself protection from Mesmeric Orb and have it be relevant in any way. We draw a Ruined Halo. So play Snow-Covered Plains. Play Greater Auramancy. We lost Mistveil Plains again. But we have an Emrakul, so that should be fine. Ruined Halo. I can try naming Mesmeric Orb just to see if it makes a difference. I don't think it does. Honestly, there's not a lot of good names as long as we have Leyline of Sanctity out. They play a Swamp. Maddening Cacophony, which doesn't target. Alright, so let's fetch an untap land. They're going to surgically extract Wheel of Sun and Moon. Well, they're going to see Emrakul. Okay, we untap, we mill anyway. There goes Nykthos, Lotus Field, Brought Back, and Ghost Quarter. We get a Deafening Silence. So, Ruined Halo... We'll name Hedron Crab, because Hedron Crab targets, and then we'll play Deafening Silence. Pass the turn. Opponent untaps, they mill 3. They play a land. We untap, we mill 3. There goes all of our Nykthoses. Play Flagstones, pass the turn. I suppose I should probably just be milling myself with my own untapped triggers to try and mill Emrakul. They're going to surgically extract Brought Back. Have they not noticed the Emrakul? I mean, we're only 1 mana away from casting Enduring Ideal, I suppose, but that means we wouldn't be able to play Emrakul. You know what? I think this is actually better, because we need to recycle these cards. Okay, we get a Detention Sphere. So, Detention Sphere. It might be better to have continued milling myself, because actually if I just draw Emrakul now, it's a problem. Because we have no Nykthoses or any sort of mana shenanigans to try and win with. Alright, well, we hit Enduring Ideal, but I don't think we can cast it because our entire enchantment game plan is in the grave. Opponent fetches up an island. Yeah, I have no way to recycle the grave other than Emrakul. I suppose if I draw him, if they haven't exiled... Oh, they did. They put Peace of Mind in the grave, so we have to get Emrakul into the grave somehow. Or get enough mana that we can actually cast him, which I don't think is possible, given what I just saw is left in our deck. Okay, they play a field. Pass the turn. Yeah, I should not have Detention Sphered that right away. I should have waited to mill Emrakul. You have 9, 10 mana, 5 away. Let's see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 lands in the grave, which means we don't have enough lands in the deck to cast Emrakul. Have they milled Heliod? They have not. New plan. That is if this doesn't get countered, of course. Pass the turn. They field us, we fail to find. Opponent apparently fails to find as well. They untap and play Crab. So we have like 5 turns to kill our opponent, is what this is working out to be. So Enduring Ideal. Let's get on Thin Ice, because it increases our clock. We draw Arid Mesa, go to combat. Attack for 5. I didn't actually... So, I might lose because I didn't notice this game plan faster. Hopefully that's not the case. I literally saw Form of the Dragon, Copy Enchantment, Dovescape, all that stuff in the grave, and was like, I guess I don't have a way to win anymore. When that obviously was not the case. Make an enchantment token. It's got Shroud. Also, it's awesome that it's the Seb McKinnon Cleric token, even though that's definitely not the token that Heliod should be using. Alright, Enduring Ideal. So we'll go get our backup Greater Oromancy. Go to combat. Attack our opponent for 9. Pass the turn. So I think my opponent's only way to kill us is Mesmeric Orb, and if we tap out into it. Yeah! Gotcha, Mill! See you guys in round 4. Alright, we'll be on the play for round 4. And I'm going to keep this hand because we have a random leyline. Might hose some targeted player threat. Lead on Snow-Covered Plains, pass the turn. Opponent plays Bloodstained Mire. Fetches and shocks a Steam Vents into a Serum Visions. Okay, this could be Storm, this could be Blitz, this could be Grixis Death Shadow. A lot of things this could be. We draw Flagstones, play Flooded Strand, pass the turn. Opponent plays Fiery Islet. Manamorphose, so here comes the Stormwing entity. It is Blitz. Opponent gets to go Scrying. We untap. We draw Phyrexian Unlife. Play Arid Mesa. Go ahead and on Thin Ice. Take out Stormwing entity. Pass the turn. If we have to, we can copy enchantment on Thin Ice. Opponent plays a Sprite Dragon. Mutagenic Growth. They get in for 4. We untap. We draw Brought Back. Play Flagstones. Let's fetch a Plains. Then fetch a Prairie Stream. Then bring back our fetch lands. Pass the turn. Manamorphose, counter on the Sprite Dragon. Soulscar Mage, Swift Spear. They're going to hit us for 4. Okay. We're going to stop on our upkeep. Fetch with Arid Mesa. Plains. Fetch with Flooded Strand. Plains. Draw Runed Halo. Play Phyrexian Unlife. Play a Plains. I think I am going to go with Copy Enchantment to take out the Sprite Dragon. Pass the turn. So we still have a lot of life at this juncture. Opponent Lava Darts themselves for prowess triggers. Plays another Swift Spear. Well, I know what I'm casting Ruined Halo and naming. They Lava Dart themselves again. Feels like they should have played Swift Spear first. We draw Hallowed Fountain, which we must play tapped. Play Ruined Halo. Get protection from Swift Spear. Pass the turn. Now if we could draw Solemnity, if we could draw Enduring Ideal, that'd be great. They Lava Dart themselves. They hit us for 2. We untap. There's the Enduring Ideal. Cast Enduring Ideal. And the game is over. Alright. So, Authority of the Consuls coming in. Peace of Mind coming in. And I feel like Greater Oromancy should come in. And we're going to take out, I think, Brought Back. We'll cut 2. Heliod is going to be less important. I think I'm fine dropping Copy Enchantment. And I'm going to cut a Fetch Land. Actually, I'm going to cut a Ghost Quarter. Try it like that. No white mana, so that's a mulligan. This might work, but with no ley line, it's a little bit sketchy. On Thin Ice and Ghostly Prison's probably too good to mulligan. Opponent leads on Steam Vents, plays Soulscar Mage. Well, let's hope they're relying on this Soulscar Mage to be able to deal damage for a light up the stage or something. Opponent cracks Bloodstained Mire, plays another Soulscar Mage, and a Swift Spear. They hit us for 1. We untap and draw Flooded Strand. Go ahead and fetch Hallowed Fountain immediately. Pass the turn. When it casts Serum Visions, then plays a fetch land. They shock Steam Vents, then play Stormwing Entity. They hit us for 4, we go to 14. Opponent only has 2 cards left in their hand. We draw another On Thin Ice, which is good. Play Nykthos. Play Ghostly Prison. That should slow them down quite a bit. Opponent goes to combat, attacks with Stormwing Entity, and pays for it. We take 3. Then they light up the stage, getting Spell Pierce and Sprite Dragon. We untap, draw Lotus Field, play Flooded Strand, fetch up a different snow-covered basic, then exile Stormwing Entity, pass the turn. We're very close to casting Enduring Ideal. Just a little bit more protection, and we'll be good to go. Like, another Ghostly Prison would stop my opponent from playing anything. They lost their Spell Pierce. We draw Snow Plains. I could play Lotus Field and sack this Snow-Covered Plains, but then I would lose Devotion. Let's see, we have 3 mana off of 3 mana right now. Lotus Field is technically mana positive. No, it's mana neutral. Alright, play Flooded Strand, pass the turn. I may just sack Flooded Strand to Lotus Field. They attack us for 2, pay for it, no blocks. Fetch with Flooded Strand, because I'm kind of tired of drawing lands. We'll get Mistveil Plains. Untap, we draw Detention Sphere. So, play Snow-Covered Plains, Detention Sphere, hit Swift Spear, pass the turn. Now Nykthos is 1 extra mana, and that puts us at exactly Enduring Ideal mana. So we can go get Unlife, then Solemnity. Like, we can just pillar forward our way out of this. Opponent plays Sprite Dragon and attacks with it. We go to 5. Untap, we draw Unlife. So I have to make a decision of whether I'm playing Unlife or Enduring Ideal. Unlife is safer, I think. So, play Unlife, then play Lotus Field, and we'll sack here and here. Pass the turn. That should buy us enough time. Opponent leads on Manamorphose. Well, they don't get to keep that mana when they declare attacks, so they'll still only be able to attack with 1 thing. Another Swift Spear and another Swift Spear and a tap land. They hit us for 2, pay for it. We go to 3, untap. We draw Solemnity. 6. We're 1 mana short of being able to play both, so we'll just Enduring Ideal. Go ahead and get... Alright, opponent is conceded. Cool, we're 2-2 going into round 5. Another slow queue. Alright, we'll be on the play for round 5, and versus an unknown opponent, this is probably okay, so I'm going to keep. And we're going to lead on Hallowed Fountain tapped. Pass the turn. Opponent Starts Mountain Soulscar Mage. We draw Mistvale Plains, so snow-covered plains. And on Thin Ice. Put that Soulscar Mage away. Looks like our opponent is on mono red, which is probably one of the better matchups for our deck. Play Flagstones. Play Phyrexian Unlife. Pass the turn. Opponent is scooped. Okay. So we'll bring in Authority of the Consuls, Peace of Mind, Greater Auramancy, and we'll cut Brought Back, a Ghost Quarter, Heliod, another Brought Back, and I'm gonna cut. You know what? No, I like Copy Enchantment better than Greater Auramancy. We'll do this. Leyline of Sanctity, no other plays. I think that's a mulligan. This is infinitely better. I will keep this. I'm gonna put back Unlife, lead on Sanctity. Opponent starts Mountain Swiftspear, hits us for 1. We untap. Go ahead and on Thin Ice, taking out Swiftspear. Opponent untaps. I thought I F6'd. Plays another Swiftspear and a Blast Zone. We untap and draw Solemnity. Play Runed Halo. Name Monastery Swiftspear. Pass the turn. Opponent passes. We untap. Draw another Leyline. Pass the turn, because we can't cast anything. Opponent passes. We draw Snow-Covered Plains. Play Ghostly Prison. Pass the turn. And opponent scoops. Mono red cannot beat the Enduring Ideal. And we get a treasure chest. So let's go ahead and open up our treasure chest, and then I'll talk about this build of the deck a little bit. 10 play points and an Electrostatic Pummeler. Okay, so this list is by no means optimized. It's something I threw together based solely off of the brought back fetch land interaction, and I learned some stuff here. I think that this interaction is too slow. It is better to be proactively playing enchantments and just using Nykthos, because the only thing we can play on turn 1 is on Thin Ice. That will change post Strixhaven when we get the 1 mana Arrest unless your opponent pays 3. Then there's definitely a new build of this deck coming out that I'll be interested in playing. But if you're playing the 2 lands, if you're going off of the brought back interaction, the odds that you have a brought back and 2 fetch lands in your hand with this list are low. So if you wanted to focus on the brought back interaction, you'd need to basically cut the Flagstones of Trocare and Lotus Fields and just play more fetch lands or cycle lands. And I definitely think if you're playing brought back, you need to be playing Silent Clearings or Sunbaked Canyons or Horizon Canopies, something to that effect. Otherwise, this deck just isn't going to work. And by playing fetch lands, you're taking yourself off of playing Suppression Field. And Suppression Field is huge in Modern. Being able to play Suppression Field tax your opponent's Planeswalkers, tax their activated abilities on their creatures, tax their Aether Vials, tax their fetch lands. It's enormous. And I think making a build of this deck that doesn't have one of the best stacks enchantment effects available is just strictly incorrect. There's no universe where this deck is better than that configuration. And that's something I didn't even think about when I was building this list. I just tried to focus on this as our mana engine. And frequently, we either had more mana than we needed to, for bring back or brought back. We already had, the double Nykthos activation, or we already were on, turn 10 because we would, locked out the game with all of our enchantments. And the fact that we're missing 4 potential silver bullet slots and we're kind of gimping our mana base a little bit is, I think it's difficult to justify. So if I was going to play this list, the swaps that I would make, I would do something like this. So we could play, I'll do Sunbaked Canyon for mine. And then, I guess because I have them, I'll do a Horizon Canopy. Losing life to your lands like this is a little bit sketch, but I think the second Greater Auramancy can go in the main, actually. And then we'll do Suppression Field, at least as a 3-of, and then we can run the 4th on Thin Ice, or you can play Porphyry Nodes. Both have their uses. On Thin Ice is better when you're talking about medium-sized creatures, like versus mid-range decks, I think On Thin Ice is better. Porphyry Nodes is better versus Swarm decks, although... And sometimes it can be better against things that actually have Hexproof, because Porphyry Nodes doesn't care about Hexproof. So maybe the fourth On Thin Ice should be Porphyry Nodes. On Thin Ice has the upside of actually sticking around on board and providing Devotion, which we don't normally get in the 1-drop slot. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of good double white enchantments that you can play in the 2-drop slot. It's something that's one of the card types that I feel like ought to be pushed a little bit more as enchantments, specifically in white, because white kind of lacks a color identity. So right now, I think it would be totally reasonable if they just took all of the text on the card Damping Sphere and printed the same card as a double white enchantment, specifically for a deck like this. You could also do the same for something like Sphere of Resistance. Could you imagine if there was a white 2-mana enchantment that said non-enchantment spells cost 1 more to cast? Yeah, it has negative synergy with Enduring Ideal, but that would actually be insane for this deck because it would build Devotion for Nykthos, and it would basically cancel itself out as far as this deck would be concerned. I would really like Defense Grid in this deck if Defense Grid was an enchantment. The problem is it's not. So like each non-enchantment spell that you play in this deck or permanent becomes a liability, and it's kind of an issue. Oh, you know what? We actually need Peace of Mind in this list, so I'll put the last On Thin Ice on the side. And for funsies, we can play, I don't know, a second Emrakul. So you can play a list that looks a little more like this, maybe 26 lands instead of 27. And this is, I think, a little bit closer to a standard Enduring Ideal list. As I say standard as in like back when Enduring Ideal kind of was a thing without some of the modern tech in it. Copy Enchantment's a little bit cute. We did play it a few times and it was okay. It was a 3-mana On Thin Ice once, and sometimes that was okay. The only time that Copy Enchantment really matters is when you're Enduring Ideal and you want like Greater Oromancy, and then you want a second copy of Greater Oromancy. But in reality, you should probably just play 2 copies of Greater Oromancy. You don't need blue in this deck, because there's no reason to play Detention Sphere other than the fact that it's like a better Oblivion Ring, sort of. But you don't need to play blue, and you do tax your mana base a little bit by doing so. I think Lotus Field as a card in this deck is somewhat reasonable. Isn't there a untap land enchantment? Actually, hang on. We're gonna take a... Okay, there's Retreat to Coralheim, but that's not what I want. My goodness, my phone's going off like crazy, and it's driving me insane. Like, I'm actually getting irritated just because my phone is going off. Let's see, Urban Burgeoning, untap during your opponent's untap. Nope. Okay, untap, let's try untap permanent. I thought there was a cheap enchantment you could use to pay and then, like, untap a permanent on, but I guess not. You could play, as an alternative, you could play green. Green gives you access to a few different enchantments that might be useful. There are some decent ramp enchantments in green with the form of like Utopia Sprawl or Overgrowth. You could even play Mana Bloom if you want, like, have a Constellation effect in the deck. You could play one of the packages I thought was kind of interesting in this deck as sort of a creature delay package, which the only reason I didn't actually play a deck like this is because we have enough creature interaction between Ghostly Prisons and Sphere of Safeties and whatnot. But you could play Astral Drift and the 4-mana O-Ring with cycling. That might honestly help you get through the deck faster. If you don't have Sunbaked Canyons and you don't want to like go for the Flagstones of Trocaire or Lotus Field type deal, maybe budget concerns or you just don't have access to the cards, I would probably play... I think this deck you could actually get away with the worst cycling land, which is Cryptic Caves. You could play... If you don't have Nykthos, you could technically play Mage Ring Network or the storage lands like Salt Crusted Steppe. There's a lot of different ways to build this deck. Oh yeah, and if you don't have the other cycling, you can play... I think it's just the white land with cycling. Secluded Steppe. You could totally play Secluded Steppe in this deck. Man, I'm wondering if there's a cycling variant of this deck to help you get to stuff faster. It'd also be... Shark Typhoon would be kind of a hilarious win condition for a deck like this, although Enduring Ideal and Shark Typhoon are kind of a non-bow. But you could still cycle Shark Typhoon under Enduring Ideal and get a Shark, which I think is kind of interesting anyway. There's a few different ways to build this deck, and the Suppression Field version, I'm definitely going to try out post Strixhaven release because of its synergy with the new 1-mana white removal enchantment, which I've heard nobody talk about, and I actually think this is going to be pretty decent. It's a 1-mana arrest that your opponent can pay 3 mana at sorcery speed to destroy, so they have to either answer it or pay 3 mana at sorcery speed. And versus a deck like this, if you're a control deck, you don't want to tap out. You're going to be like, I guess, tempo negative if you're countering a 1-mana spell. I think it hits non-land permanents, so you can answer planeswalkers with it as well. And it synergizes with Suppression Field, because Suppression Field being out means it costs 2 more per Suppression Field to activate. Instead of 3 mana, it'll be 5, and then 7, and so on and so forth. I think the form of the Dragon Kill is a little bit cute. It used to be like the ideal way to win with this deck. Haha, enduring ideal. But I'm not sure if that's still the case or not. I don't know if there's another enchantment-based way to kill your opponent. There probably is with some sort of constellation trigger. I just don't know what that is off the top of my head. And I think I've rambled enough. Our sideboard, I think, was fine. With more consistent mana, I could see Emrakul actually being a real win condition. You definitely don't want to play it without Peace of Mind in the actual main deck, though. I think not having Peace of Mind in the main deck was a huge mistake. That bit us at least once. And I think that's all I've got to say for now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. And remember, you can follow me on Twitch. Same username over there as you find me on here. I stream Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, though the last few have been earlier. And I hope to see you there. I want you to know that you're all wonderful human beings, and I really, really appreciate the viewership. Like, I was having several discussions with a few IRL friends of mine talking about the YouTube channel, and the more I talk about it, the more it's like, oh my gosh, I'm a real YouTuber. I have, there's a real following of people that enjoy me on a daily basis, and I'm a daily part of, several people's lives, up to and including a couple hundred of you potentially. Like, when I look at the minimum number of views that I'm getting on each video per day, it's like, as long as it's Magic related content, it's like over 100 views a day, which means that, for some number of them being recurring people, because I know there are some people who watch every single one of my videos, it's like, I'm in these people's lives every day of the year, every day that I upload, and it's an interesting thing to think about, and I'm happy to be able to provide that entertainment. So thanks. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say thanks. It's kind of a surreal feeling, and I never thought I would feel something like this. It's really cool. So I've rambled enough. You guys are cool. I hope to see you guys next time. Bye.